Hey, everybody, welcome to Ask Me Anything about attracting your soulmate. My name is Stefan Gonick. I'm an expert EFT practitioner and founder of the Soulmate Attraction Academy from singletosoulmate.me. For over 30 years, I have been helping people by using EFT to clear their love blocks so they can finally be with their soulmate. So, in this Ask Me Anything YouTube Live, I'm going to answer your questions about what might be blocking you and what you can do about it so you can finally be with your soulmate too. Now, I have people live on the call with me. In fact, I'm going to post this comment here. I have people live in the call, and I also have questions that people email to me in advance. And I'm going to be going back and forth between those depending on if the live people are ready with their questions. So if you have questions, if you're live on the call with me and you have questions, immediately start typing them into the comments. You don't have to worry about whether or not I'm answering another question, because that way when I finish answering, say, an emailed in question, then I can go ahead and immediately answer your question. So I encourage you to go ahead and start submitting your questions now. Now, before I start answering questions, though, I want to briefly share with you 3 guiding principles of my work to help people clear their blocks and find their soulmate. So there's 3 key concepts. The first one is that people tend to be powerfully, subconsciously attracted to the wrong people, which is an explanation as to why people often notice that they keep getting together with the same kind of person over and over again, in spite of their best efforts, in spite of watching out for red flags and all that. Some people call it dating the same person with different faces. And who are these wrong people? These wrong people are people who usually have the worst negative traits of your own parents or caregivers. Now, there's a big explanation as to why that is true. But I don't want to spend time on that right now unless somebody asks me about it, and I'd be happy to go into more depth. But I just want to quickly cover the 3 concepts. That's concept 1. As long as you're powerfully subconsciously attracted to the wrong people, it's going to be really hard to have a really happy, loving, healthy relationship. Okay? So when I work with people, that's like the first thing I address with them. The second key concept is that we also tend to have fears and limiting negative beliefs that can interfere with or prevent us from being with our ideal partner or soulmate. So let's say you've completely taken care of that first block of being attracted to the wrong people, but then it still can be really hard to be with your soulmate because if you meet somebody who has everything you're looking for in a partner, chances are you may find them too intimidating, too scary, or you have these limiting beliefs that make you feel discouraged in advance. And these fears and limiting beliefs will either be so powerful that makes it hard for you to even talk to somebody that you find really interesting, or they'll cause you to sabotage yourself. So you'll be all tongue-tied and stumbly when you're talking to them, or do weird things that you wouldn't normally do, where you're going, where'd that come from, And you just kind of ruin it with that person. So that's block number 2. The third one is a little more esoteric. It's about not being aligned with forces to bring your soulmate into your life as quickly as possible. This has to do with the topic of the law of attraction. So again, that one I can get into later. I'm happy to go into depth if anybody has follow-up questions that they want to ask me, like how these things work. But I just want to just kind of get that established up front. All right, so I am going to go ahead and start with my first emailed in question. And this is actually, those 3 key blocks was a good segue because this person is specifically talking about block number 2, having fears and limiting beliefs that interfere with being with your soulmate. So this person wrote, "Could you help with not feeling good enough to meet my soulmate?" So not feeling good enough, not feeling good enough, that's a negative belief about myself. My belief is I'm not good enough to attract my soulmate. There's a little exercise I do with clients. I'm going to give you a much shorter version of it than what I do with a client. I do a much more elaborate version with a client. But I want you to just briefly think about the things that you're looking for in your ideal partner. Just take a moment to do that. You don't have to think of everything, just some of the most important things. So just take a moment to do that. And then I want you to just imagine that you're at a party and you meet somebody who's being introduced to you. Say maybe a friend is introduced to this person. Hey, this person I'd like to introduce you to so and so because I think you guys might really like each other or something. But I want you to just for some reason you can sense that they are everything you're looking for in a partner, and then notice what your emotional reactions are. Um, Now you might start with a positive reaction, like "Wow, that's exciting," right? But if you're like most of us, you'll have a lot of negative reactions, a lot of fears, negative beliefs, things like that. So just take a moment to notice that. And if I didn't give you enough time, just try this exercise on your own after the call's over. But the number one most common limiting belief or negative belief that people have that comes up for them when they imagine meeting their ideal partner is, I am not good enough for him or her, right? This person is so amazing. They have everything I'm looking for in a partner. Why would they want to be with me? I'm not good enough for this person, or I'm not worthy of this person. People interchange those two words, good enough or worthy, or maybe deserving, but they're all really the same kind of thing. So this person has the number one most common negative belief. I had that same negative belief. The way I worded it was, anybody that I am super interested in couldn't possibly be interested in me. That was the way I worded it. Same belief. So not feeling good enough. So not feeling good enough comes from multiple potential resources. You can have any one of them. Unfortunately, you can have all of them. This has to do with from your childhood growing up. The first most common reason why you would end up as an adult not feeling good enough or not worthy is if you had one or more parents who were not loving towards you. See, when we're very, very young, 2, 3 years old, we discover who we are based on how our parents treat us. So if our parents give us lots of love and attention, then our simple little mind concludes, I must be a good kid. I must deserve love and attention. I must be lovable, right? Simple. If we don't get enough love and attention from our parents at this really young age, then our simple mind goes, I must not deserve love and attention. I must be a bad kid. I must not be lovable. And this is true even if you have one loving parent and one not loving parent, which is a common situation. You would think ideally that if you at least had one loving parent, that would be enough. But we desperately want to be loved by both parents, even abusive ones. So if you have a very non-loving parent who's sort of emotionally cut off or distant or reserved, things like that. And I'm not even talking about abusive. I just mean not there, not loving. Unfortunately, the end result is we'll feel not good enough, not worthy, something wrong with me, that kind of stuff. So that's one of the most common causes. But let's say you had reasonably loving parents. There's other things that could have happened growing up that can still lead to the same outcome, because it would lead to their love feeling conditional rather than unconditional, which then has the same result. So one of them is having a parent who gets really angry and yells and screams at you. Okay, so even though they can be loving other times, if they get really angry and yell and scream, the underlying message of when a parent is yelling and screaming at their child, regardless of what they're yelling and screaming at them about, the underlying unspoken message is, "You're not okay with me." Okay, and so what the kid is feeling as they're being yelled at is, "I am not okay." Right? If that happens once or twice in your whole childhood, it's not going to do it. But if it happens regularly, you're going to start feeling pretty not okay, not good enough, something wrong with me, that kind of thing. So that's a second way that you can end up feeling not good enough for your soulmate. And then the third one is if you have a parent who tends to be critical and judgmental. Okay, when a parent is being critical of you and they're saying something critical to you, what they're basically saying is that this piece of you is not okay with me. Right? When it's yelling, is you are not okay with me. All you as a person is not okay with me. Critical, judgmental parent is like, this piece of you is not okay with me. And then that piece of you is not okay with me. And then that piece of you is not okay with me. And then that piece. If they're critical and judgmental, they're going to do this a lot over many, hundreds of times over your childhood. These are all like little jabs of rejection of pieces of you. And it accumulates until finally you start feeling like, I'm not okay. Right? Even though I've never been told that I as a whole am not okay, there's so many pieces that are not okay. I tend to feel not okay, right? And again, not good enough. Critical judgmental can very directly lead to not good enough. It could also be feeling not worthy, again, things like that. So those are the three main causes: unloving or distant parent, angry, yelling parent, um, and judgmental and critical parent. And it's not that hard to get all three of those, as you can imagine, unfortunately. So then the question is, well, what do you do about this? Well, the these all can be healed using EFT. Trying to heal these things using traditional therapy can take many years, and lots of times you only get partial success. With EFT, you can really heal this at a deep level in a relatively short period of time. So what you do in each case is the same healing technique in each case. So what you do is you pick an example memory from when you're young. Ideally, see, our formative years are 0 to 8. So ideally, you want to pick a memory that's within that age range, 0 to 8. Ideally, if you can't remember something that young, then pick 9 or 10, right? But try and pick something like that. I tend to say, look for a memory that's around 5 or 6. Is what I go for. Then what you want to do is relive the memory, get in touch with all the original painful feelings, and tap on those feelings. Okay, and so let's say we're doing the well. It's a little tricky. It's easy with being yelled at. It's easy to have memories of being yelled at, right? And it's also pretty easy to have memories of being criticized. It's harder to do. So it's easy to pick example memories of that. With a parent who's not loving, it's not really something that they did do. It's the lack of being loving. So what you want to look at there, this is more subtle, right? So what you want to look at there is, if they weren't loving, what was their default way of being? And typically it's going to be kind of distant and reserved. So you would pick, and that was just kind of a constant. So you won't have a specific memory in that case. So I'm going a little more detail here because this is a more challenging case to deal with. So what you do in that case is just remember being 5, say, and just remember your parent being that way in general. So you're kind of creating more of a scenario than a specific memory. But this works fine for healing. So what you do is you would imagine that scenario that there's mom or dad, whoever's the distant, unavailable one, and they're just being that way. And it's not that they're doing something bad to me, it's that they're not available. Like, I want to connect. In fact, if I try and connect, they'll brush me off or go, and then go back to what they're doing. And it's painful. So you would get in touch with those painful feelings and you tap on them until you bring them down, 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 close to 0. Right. So in all three cases, the same. The pain of having an unloving parent, the pain of having an angry, yelling parent, and specific memory there, pain of having a critical, judgmental parent. You tap on all those feelings and you bring it all the way down, ideally to 0 or at least near 0, like a 2 or less. Okay, so you do that. That's part 1. Part 2, you want to, and this is challenging to do on your own, but do the best you can. Part 2, imagine either that they magically went away and got healed and they're now loving or no longer would ever be angry or no longer judgmental or critical, and they come back and they apologize for their painful behavior. And then you imagine life going forward where they're being loving and no longer doing the bad things. So if it's a distant, unloving parent, they're just being loving, attentive, affectionate, spend lots of time with you, things like that. And you just imagine over the next months at that age of them being this really loving, available parent who's really interested. If it's a angry, yelling parent, they apologize, and you imagine them being loving. You always imagine them being loving. Imagine them being loving, and when some situation would come up where normally they would get really angry and yell, they instead handle it in a very reasonable, kind way. They just explain if you did something wrong. They just explain what you did wrong and what they want you to do next time, and say, do you understand what I'm saying? And as a kid, typically we want to please our parents. We go, yeah, I understand. They go, okay, great. They just handle it in a nice, reasonable way. And critical, judgmental, you're imagining them being loving. and never being critical anymore, and instead being appreciative. So it's kind of the opposite of being critical, right? So being appreciative, looking for. So a critical parent will tend to look for what's wrong instead of what's right. A non-critical parent will look for what's right instead of what's wrong. So you're going to imagine your parent looking for what's right instead of what's wrong, and praising you. The opposite of criticizing you is praising you. So if you do this several times, so pick different memories to do it. Um, Typically, when I work with somebody one-on-one, we can heal this in about 3 healing sessions using 3 example memories of that thing, right? So if, let's say, critical parent, if we have 3 example memories of being on the receiving end of their critical parent, um, we can heal that whole theme of being criticized and judged growing up. Same with angry, yelling parent. The distant, unavailable parent might take a little longer. That one's just a very core wound, so it might take 5 sessions, right? So it's still pretty fast. So anyway, this is the approach you take. It's possible to do this on your own if you follow the guideline I just described. If you don't do this, it's really hard to shift it in a dramatic way. There are things you can do to try and build yourself up, right? If your self-esteem, if you have low self-esteem in some ways, what we're talking about here, there's 2 ways to address it. One is to heal the wounds that happen to you that hurt your self-esteem, and the other is to do processes to try and lift your self-esteem. The second approach works much better if we've already done the healing approach first. Some people just go straight for the uplifting one, and it helps some. So I mean, it's certainly better than nothing. So that's the other thing you can do is do kind of a shallow tapping where even though I don't feel good enough for my ideal partner, I deeply and profoundly love and accept myself. And you tap on not feeling good enough, and then you start tapping on positive affirmations. I don't find that approach super effective, but it can help a bit. The ideal thing to do is to heal the original wounds that made you feel not good enough. So anyway, that's the answer to that question. Just want to check to see if I have any questions, comments from people live. And I don't see any yet, so I'm going to go ahead and answer another emailed in question. All right, so this question says, do I have to forget all about my ex before asking for my soulmate? So this is a very interesting question. This is not in the area of the 3. Well, it is in the 3rd area. So it's not about who you're attracted to or the fears and negative beliefs. It's about. Oh, I have somebody wrote just how. So if you can expand on your question, then I'd be very happy to respond to it. Yeah. So just please type a longer question there. So do I have to forget all about my ex? So it really depends on how tied to them you are, right? Sometimes we have a very strong. You can think of it as like an energetic bond or cord attached to a prior partner that we need to cut. The cord can be a very based on leftover positive feelings and or negative feelings, pain, right? So if we still are in love with the past partner, that's going to really interfere with finding a new partner. You're not going to be open to them emotionally, right? Your heart's not going to be open. The other option, which is probably the more common one, is you still have a lot of leftover pain, and it's that can be a big impediment for a number of reasons. So one of them is if I have a lot of pain, I might be very gun shy about getting into a new relationship. And ironically, I'll be more gun shy with somebody who seems really, really good. If I meet somebody who seems like so, I won't be so scared of that person because I don't care that much, right? But if I meet somebody really great, then the stakes are going to be high. I know I would really care about that person. It's going to make me extra scared. And gun shy, because gun shy meaning I'm going to be afraid of repeating the same pain that I experienced in my prior relationship. Okay. So the question is, do I have to, let's see, forget about him? It's not forget about him so much as you need to clear the pain. And the way you do this is you tap on it, right? You go back to the pain that you experienced in that relationship, get specific about it. You don't just say, even though I have all this pain, right? So it's usually because they did some certain kinds of things in particular that caused you a certain kinds of pain. So you want to go, even though, I feel so hurt and betrayed by my ex doing such and such. I deeply found love and accept myself. And then you use any again, like childhood, you use a representative memory of what they did that you still feel pain about. And you tap on that memory until the pain is gone. You don't have to have that second part where you imagine them reformed and all that, but you just want to relive that memory and tap on it till the pain is zero. And then, wait a few days and then think about that ex and think, do I still feel pain when I think about the ex? If I do, then I need to do this again, right? Maybe I have to do another memory of the same thing, or maybe my ex did a few different kinds of things that caused me pain. So I have to do a memory of each at least. So anyway, that's my answer for that is you need to clear out any prior bonds. And if you have an overly positive bond, like they broke it off and you still wanted to be with them, you have to tap on that. It's the same kind of thing. Now you're tapping on letting go of a positive feeling, but it's a positive feeling in a negative context, right? Because you want to be with them and they don't want to be with you. And that's a painful situation. And it's going to keep you stuck. So you want to tap and release that. All right. So I've got some live questions. Okay. Let me bring this one to the front. She wrote, how do you use EFT to heal abandonment wounds? Many relationships I have been left, and it feels like a pattern, and I want to break it. So people who have abandonment wounds or repeating patterns of being left in relationships or abandoned, it is often because they experience abandonment a lot as a child, right? Remember the first block of being powerfully subconsciously attracted to the wrong people, people with the worst negative traits of our parents. You can actually generalize that a little bit and say the worst negative experiences with our parents might be a little bit better way to describe that. So if you got painfully abandoned in either a single huge kind of traumatic way or just multiple ways that accumulate over time, over your childhood, you'll end up with an abandonment wound that will subconsciously cause you to become attracted to people who will abandon you. And in fact, you might even act in ways out of your fear of being abandoned that will actually lead to them abandoning you. So you need to heal that. Now, the method I described earlier to heal this stuff is the same technique. So what you do is you think of example memories, the youngest one. Always start with the youngest that you can remember. I call it first and worst. So try and remember the youngest memory you have of whatever the painful behavior was, and heal that memory. And then if you need to do a few more memories, like I said, with me, working with me, it'd be like 3. Working on your own, it might take 6, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, do the youngest memory you can think of and do some of the worst memories you can remember. So you would look for abandonment memories and heal them in the way I said. Part 1, relive the memory, feel the painful feelings, and tap on those feelings until you bring it down to close to 0. Part 2, imagine your parent was healed and is now acting in like sort of the opposite of the bad way they were acting before. If it's too hard for you to let yourself even imagine that your parent was healed, just imagine an ideal parent stepping in and becoming your parent. It's the other way to do it too. So you would kind of redo those abandonment memories and have your either healed parent or your ideal parent come in and be the opposite of abandoning. Being very, reliable and loving and attentive and being with you and not abandoning you in the ways that your parent did originally. And if you do that effectively enough and enough times, it will clear out the abandonment wound. Now, here's a little tip for people. If you're working on those 3 key blocks, right? So if you're working on the first block which is where I encourage everybody to start, of breaking free from your negative attraction patterns, there's a really cool thing you can do to track your progress. And this is by coming up with what I call a reference person. A reference person is somebody who fits your negative attraction patterns. So let's say you have a pattern of, pick a really concrete example. You have a pattern of being attracted to people who get angry and yell because you had a parent who got angry and yelled, right? And so what you do is you're trying to think of somebody who's currently in your life or from your past who was an angry yeller, right? But somebody that when you think about them, you feel this powerful pull to them, even though your mind's going, no way, horrible, but you have this gut level attraction to them. That's on a scale of 0 to 10 is a high number, ideally 8, 9, or 10. And then you just kind of write that down somewhere and set it aside. You don't work on them specifically. And then you start healing example memories of, say, whoever, your dad being this angry yeller. And after you heal each memory, you go back and you check your gut level attraction to your reference person. And let's say it was a 9 originally. You heal one memory, you'll check in, you go, oh, my gut level attraction is now a 6. Oh, I'm making progress. Awesome. You heal another memory and you go, wow, now my gut level attraction is a 3. You heal another memory and now it's a 0. That'd be the ideal case. Maybe it takes you more memories, but ultimately the goal is to get down to having 0 attraction towards your reference person. And typically when you get to 0, not only will you have 0 attraction, this doesn't mean you don't find them visually attractive. I'm talking about a pull. When you get to a 0 attraction to that person, you will most likely also feel a bit of a yuck reaction, an aversion reaction, like that. When you get that feeling, you are guaranteed to have broken free from that negative attraction pattern, which is awesome. So you can have this concrete, surefire way of telling when you've succeeded in breaking free from this negative attraction pattern you have. Now, lots of times we have more than one, right? So ideally, you're going to think of more than one person. Even just 2 is a big improvement. Because let's say you have 3 negative attraction patterns and any one reference person may not have all 3 negative traits. They might. If they do, great. Then they cover all 3 of them. If they don't, though, it's good to have maybe 2 reference people. But either way, once you get down to that 0 yuck feeling with 1, 2, or say even 3 reference people, then you know for sure that you're never will be attracted to that kind of person again for the rest of your life. That chapter of your life is over. So you won't have to be looking for red flags, any of that kind of stuff. You'll just be repulsed by them instead of magnetically attracted to them. So it's an awesome feeling. when that happened for me, it was so liberating. Of course, then I had to start working on block 2, right? But it was still so liberating to not be attracted to those kind of women anymore. All right, let's see. Let me see. Well, actually, let me answer my next email question. I don't want to get too far behind on my email questions. I like to give priority to the live people, but I also want to answer the emails. Okay, here we go. Is it possible to meet your soulmate if you're not yet living the life you dream of, but trying to work towards that point? For example, in the case of an aspiring musician who has to survive doing boring day jobs, a person attempting to change a career path, etc. I keep reading that you have to somehow be in a perfect place in your life in order to meet your soulmate. But what if this perfect place is not quite yet within reach and you are doing all you can? Are chances of meeting a soulmate diminished in that case? So the simple, quick answer is no, they're not diminished. In fact, somebody who's pursuing a dream, it's very exciting to be pursuing a dream because most of us don't pursue dreams, right? We just get a job. So somebody who has big aspirations to, become a successful musician or to start a new business or whatever the career is, that's awesome, right? It's actually very attractive to people because, like I say, most people just kind of get a regular job. And nothing wrong with getting a regular job, but it's just somebody with great aspirations is actually attractive. But what I think is really going on here, though, looking at it more deeply, is we're back to that not good enough thing. Like if I don't have my dream job yet and I'm working a quote boring day job, then that brings out my underlying feeling of not being good enough. See, if we have this underlying feeling of not being good enough, which is kind of a vague thing when you think about it, like I just feel not good enough. Lots of times our mind will look for things to point at. Well, I'm not good enough because of that. I'm not good enough because I'm a guy and I'm too short. I'm not good enough because I don't have the right job. I'm not good enough because I don't have enough money. I'm not good enough because I don't have enough muscles. Whatever it is. And for women, they have their own set of things where they go, "Oh, I'm not good enough because of that." In fact, I have this video called, "Am I 2X to attract my soulmate, or am I not X enough?" Or X is one of these things we were just talking about. So look at my answer around feeling not good enough, because that's going to be the true source of this. If you feel good enough, it doesn't matter what your job is, because when a person feels good about themselves and they have this quiet inner confidence, that is very attractive to people. I mean, you've probably met people like that, and they're very appealing. So that's the true goal. It's not about these external factors. It's about feeling good within yourself, comfortable in your own skin. All right, so let me move on to the next question here. This person wrote, "Hi, Stefan. My question would be how to deal with the fear of being rejected, especially when you start dating." All right, so I don't know if you're male or female. I can't tell by your name, but this is a very, very common fear, is the fear of rejection. The reason why I said I don't know, what gender you are is, I think it's a little extra scary for men in our culture, because men tend to be the one who has to initiate. Sometimes women will initiate, which is awesome. But generally speaking, it's the guy who has to initiate. So if he feels like he's putting himself on the line when he walks up to a woman who he finds very attractive in some way, I don't mean just visually, but there's some stuff about her is like, wow, she seems like really interesting. And he tries to strike a conversation, and he's coming forward with a fear of being rejected. And women can have the same thing. Even if she's waiting for him to talk to her, he might talk to her. Even if he does initiate it, she might be so scared that as he starts to get to know her, he won't find her interesting and won't like her, and therefore will reject her even after he initiated. So it comes up in both people. And it kind of comes back to that not feeling good enough, not worthy thing, right? Because when you think about it, what is bad about being, quote, rejected, right? It makes us, when somebody does something that feels like a rejection. By the way, for guys, actually, I just want to add this one little thing. For women who don't understand what it's like for a guy. For a guy, not only is it scary that, we have to take the initiative and we might get rejected, but many guys have this feeling that we won't just get rejected, we'll get rejected with scorn. Like a woman will kind of like, we'll try and talk to her, and she'll kind of like frown and look us up and down and go, oh, like, what are you even doing trying to talk to me? And this rarely happens. It did happen to me once. I had a woman look me up and down and gave me this look like, literally. Wasn't fun to be on the receiving end of that. It almost never happens, but that's often what the guy is feeling as he's trying to go to somebody, talk to somebody, is that he's not going to just be rejected, but he's going to be rejected with scorn and contempt. So the idea here is when you perceive yourself as being rejected and you have negative beliefs about yourself, it brings them out, right? Because if this person doesn't return my interest, then I must be no good. I must not be good enough for her or him, right? There must be something wrong with me. So if we already have that kind of stuff, and which is very common to have, that's the pain of rejection is really that it's getting us in touch with the pain that we already have, feeling not very good about ourselves. Somebody who feels really good within themselves doesn't really experience a, quote, that's why I say, quote, a rejection as a rejection. They just experience it as, okay, apparently we don't match. I actually have this very inexpensive little mini program called Fearless Dating. That's just an EFT module on just the fear of rejection in dating, where I talk about there actually being no such thing as rejection, and I explain the whole concept behind that. And then I have a tapping script to use to help release any leftover feelings of the idea of being rejected, right? And I encourage people to use that, before they go out and socialize, Or if they've got, let's say they're internet dating and they set up their first date with this new person, they use my little tapping script um, that same day before they go on their date, and it really helps you relax. So it's a big topic. So if what I would do for you who submitted the question is I'd like you to remember the last time you were rejected, or imagine approaching somebody that you find really interesting and getting, quote, rejected, and then try and tune inside and see what comes up for you as you experience yourself being rejected, right? I'm gonna clear this thing here. So what emotions come up for you? What negative feelings, what negative beliefs come up for you? Because that's going to be the source of the pain that is getting triggered when you experience something that feels like a rejection. Then that will point you to where you need to heal. And if you were at the early part of this call, you'll hear the 3 common causes of feeling not good enough, not worthy, not lovable. And so that would be a good places to look. But it's not limited to those 3. Those are just the 3 most common ways. So hopefully that answers your question. If if the people who asked a question already, you're welcome to ask follow-up questions. As long as we got this call going, I'd be happy to answer them. In the meantime, I will go ahead and answer the next email question. Okay, here we go. I've been using some dating sites for a while now, and I haven't been successful so far. I'm always attracting the wrong men. Ding, ding, ding. Right? Block number 1. I met in person only 2 men out of 14. Unfortunately, there's no spark with either of the 2. I'm always inclined to the jerks who at some point soon show their true colors. Of course, we don't know what she means by jerks, so we want to be more specific of what that means. Nobody has good intentions with me, even if they say the opposite and make me to believe that. I'm very frustrated at this point. So why am I always attracted to the wrong men, and what do I do? I just want to find a genuine person like me. Please help. So this is, as I say, this is exactly block number 1, being powerfully subconsciously attracted to the wrong people, people with the worst negative traits or experiences that you experienced growing up with your parents. So for the person who submitted this question, to get more specific for you, think about what negative traits these men have in common. Okay. So think about these men you're trying to date, think about past relationships you're in, and just even though the men may have been very different as people in various ways, it's highly, highly likely they had certain negative traits in common, and write them down. One thing you can do is just write down the negative traits of your last 4 boyfriends and 4 lists, and then just start looking for which of those negative traits, 3 or 4 of the guys had in common. So once you get once you get your core list down, those are the negative traits you seem to be attracted to over and over again, then ask yourself, do either of my parents have these negative traits? If the answer is yes, then that's where the healing needs to be. And again, you want to use that same 2-part healing process that I described. So for me, for instance, the negative trait that I was attracted to was I was attracted to women with a victim mentality. Just like dear old mom, my mom had a victim mentality. People with a victim mentality are very blamey. They act like, they act like everything that's painful in a relationship is because of you. They don't see their role in it, right? Because in reality, everything's 50-50. It's not all one person ever. I don't want to debate the everything. Anyway, let's just say, generally speaking, it's 50-50. And so I was having girlfriend after girlfriend after girlfriend who had a victim mentality. So the way you would heal that is think of example memories, the youngest I can remember, the worst ones I can remember, and heal them using that 2-part process that I talked about. And it'll help break out of your negative attraction pattern. So if this person is frustrated with the kinds of guys she meets all the time, that's the thing to do. By the way, one of the things she said that was very important. She said, unfortunately, I'm always inclined to jerks who at some point show their true colors, even if they say the opposite about it. So lots of times I'll have clients who will argue with me about this negative attraction pattern thing, saying, well, I'm attracted to unavailable men, if I look at my last boyfriend, when I first met him, he was super available. So how do you expect me to have spotted that? He's acted super available. Um, so here's the thing. Regardless of how the person you're dating acts initially, of course, in the beginning, everybody's on their best behavior, right? When you're first meeting someone, you get to know them, they're on their very best behavior, and they are going to be extra loving and positive. And we all tend to do, and we do that too, right? We're on our best behavior. But there are subtle cues that our subconscious mind is picking up on that tells us that this is another unavailable person or another angry person. Even if, like this person you're dating, maybe they never get angry in the first 3 months you're dating them. And it's not till later they finally get angry. But on the very first date, you are picking up subtle cues that they have that anger pattern, or that they're critical and judgmental, or that they're abandoning, or that they're whatever it is, victim mentality, you know. But anyway, doesn't matter. There's going to be subtle cues that you are picking up on subconsciously. When I first went to therapy to address my patterns and all that, my therapist pointed that out to me. Everything I'm just telling you, and I thought, well, if there are subtle cues that I can pick up on subconsciously, then I should be able to pick up on them consciously too, right? So I started to look for them, and sure enough, I got really good at spotting them consciously. I had what I call my victim radar. I was going do 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 do. There's one, which helped me a lot. Because, with my therapist with more regular therapy, it took 3 years for me to break out of my pattern of being attracted to victim women. So it was really helpful for me to have a way to spot them from a distance. So I would just like stay away from them, right? That's why it's so awesome with EFT that you can do that in just a small number of sessions. So anyway, that's why it's important to heal this, because looking for red flags often doesn't work because consciously you're not going to see them. They're going to be on their best behavior. Or you may see the red flags and disregard them. That's another common thing that happens. Part of you is picking up on the red flags and part of you is going, and you go forward because there's this powerful subconscious attraction. So you override the red flags you're noticing. So that's another thing. All right, let's see. Any more live questions? No? All right. So let's move on to the next one. I never had a girlfriend. I'm 40 now and still have never entered a relationship. So no girlfriend, no relationship. I grew up with 2 elder sisters who had everything: great social lives, several boyfriends, money, etc. I fear and have a gut feeling inside that I don't have the qualities to offer what a woman needs or is looking for in a man. It's not simply enough to have a good job, look decent, and be a nice, warm, loving person for women. There's something I don't have, and women don't tell me openly and honestly what it is. The fear of not being good enough or measuring up as a man. I fear I can't or won't have a relationship. I don't know the reasons why. I feel I'll never have what it takes to keep a woman happy and satisfied. Hence, even if I get into a relationship, there would be a huge fear of the woman leaving or cheating. So to avoid all those problems, it's much easier to stay and be alone and single. Okay, so clearly this is back to not good enough. So you can see what a common theme that is, right? What he's lacking, I bet every woman listening to that question can just go, I know what his problem is. And his problem is a lack of confidence, right? Is he's feeling very insecure about himself. And unfortunately, insecurity is not an attractive quality. So that's what's going on for him. So even though he has a good job and he's a nice person, he's loving and stuff, he's convinced that he doesn't have what it takes. He doesn't have what women want. And he's thinking of it as some sort of magical thing. But it's really just that he's feeling insecure about himself, like majorly insecure about himself. So insecure that he's afraid that even if he were to get into a relationship, they would break up with him or cheat on him. Right. So, so he's like too scared to even try. And that's another thing. So we have this negative belief that he's not good enough. And remember I said block 2 is having fears and negative beliefs. So he has certain fears of being left or cheated on. That's going to make it really hard for him to go forward. That's going to make him even more scared if you try to talk to a woman. So again, I already answered the question as to where that all comes from, what to do about it. By the way, this reminded me of some interesting things. You mentioned being cheated on. If you have a pattern of being cheated on or being a cheater, so either you cheat on your partners or you get cheated on, or you're the third person in a cheating triangle, this typically comes from having a parent who cheated when you were a child. Even if you're not consciously aware that they cheated. Now, sometimes we are aware. It's like, yeah, my dad cheated on my mom, or my mom cheated on my dad. But lots of times you're not aware, but you're picking up on it psychically. Like for any of us who've ever been cheated on, and I've been cheated on. You can sense it, right? It's not like you know for sure anything, but you get this weird feeling. It's like, what is my partner doing, right? I remember it happened with my girlfriend. She had this male friend, and which was fine with me. I had a lot of female friends. But one day, all of a sudden, I went, "What are they doing together?" And for all week long, I was having that feeling. And the next time I saw her, I said, "What are you doing with so and so?" And she went, "What are you doing?" Anyway, I was right. She was just started cheating. So you pick up on it psychically. And as a child, this will create a pattern of being attracted to the cheating thing in any one of the three positions or all of them. Okay. Another common pattern is addictions. If you had a parent with an addiction, that's another negative experience or negative trait. And you can then develop a pattern of being attracted to people with addictions. It doesn't have to be the same one, just addiction. So if you have a parent who smoked, you might be attracted to people who drink or gamble or whatever. Just, addiction is a thing in itself, regardless of the specific behavior. So if you, like I say, if you had a parent with an addiction of any sort, you'll tend to be attracted to people who have some kind of addiction too. So there's a lot of negative attraction patterns out there that you can have. Having a really needy, if you had a really needy parent, you might be attracted to needy people. That's another one. All right. Any live questions? Nope. All right, so we have another email question. So here's somebody who's familiar with the concepts already. I don't know if there's a man or woman. How do I know that I have truly shaken off the attraction to wrong partners? Step one, or concept one. I worked for years on the inner child daddy issues, but nothing seems to change in my love life. Oh, this is a three-part question. All right. So I don't know what the wrong partner is, and I don't know how you're working on it. So, somebody just said, "Hi, all. Hi to you. Please go ahead and submit your questions. We're getting near the end, so if you have a question, please submit it pretty quickly, and I would love to answer it for you. Right now, I'm in the middle of answering questions that were emailed to me in advance before this live call. The reason why I'm looking here is that's where I'm seeing the comments on my screen. Okay, I'm going to start by answering this email question I'm in the middle of, and then I'm going to come to you. Oh, actually, it's not a question. You said, Stefan, thanks for your EFT videos. I've been finding them so interesting and helpful. You are very welcome. I'm so glad that you're finding them interesting and helpful. So thank you for thanking me. All right. But please do ask a question if you have one. All right, so back to here. So, I've been working for years on my inner child and daddy issues. So that's the sad thing is that lots of times, if you don't have an effective healing process, you can work on it for years and not make progress. Many of my clients that I've helped break free from their negative attraction patterns had often done many years of therapy before coming to me, either traditional therapy or even working with other EFT practitioners. So you have to use an effective healing approach. Now, when I work with people one-on-one, so I've been prescribing a two-part healing process, right? Release the painful feelings and imagine your, your healed parent or ideal parent being loving and giving you what you were needing and not getting originally, right? So treating you in the opposite way as the negative way you were originally treated, opposite positive way. And when I do it, I actually have a third middle piece, which is the empowerment piece. So part one is release the negative feelings. Part two is to help the person's inner child stand up for her himself, basically standing up to the parent and say, hey, it's not okay to treat me this way. Because one of the things that happens when we get treated in a negative way over and over and over again growing up is subconsciously deep down, we come to believe that we deserve to be treated that way. Even if we hated being treated that way, subconsciously, we believe that we deserved to be treated that way, which makes us overly tolerant to being treated that way as an adult. Sometimes so overly tolerant, we don't even notice that we're being treated badly. So I find when I work with people, it's really important to have an empowerment piece in the middle to stand up for ourselves with the basic message of like, no, hey, it's not okay to treat me that way, which helps us break out of that feeling that we deserve to be treated that way. And then in part 3, we heal our internal parent, who then treats us in a loving, opposite good way that we didn't get originally. But if you follow that and you do it well, it'll take care of it. I've seen that over and over and over again. So that's what it takes. So that'd be my answer. Let's see. Question is, okay. Let me show the question. Can EFT help with past life trauma, which can impact feeling safe in relationships in this life? Absolutely. The only issue is you have to be able to remember something from that past life to heal it. But if you can remember the thing that happened in that past life that is impacting you feeling safe in this life in your relationships, then you just use EFT on that because it's still a memory, right? Even if the memory is from a prior life rather than your childhood, it's still the exact same process. So that's easy to do. The only hard part is whether or not you remember it. You don't have to remember it super clearly. You can remember it vaguely in a shadowy sort of way. But if you remember even just a glimpse of it, that can often be enough. Now, there's this other technique I use called ask and receive, which is a more spiritually oriented technique. I tend to use that technique a lot on past lives when somebody has a deep sense that there's something that happened in that life that's affecting them today, but they really have no memories from it. So there's no memory to work on directly. And I'll use ask and receive. But I don't want to get in this call. I don't want to try and get into what that is. You can go to my website and I have a page about it if you want to see, if you're curious about it. But like I say, if you have a memory from the past life, no problem. Just do it the same way. All right. And then the next person said, hi, Stefan. My question is, I do a lot of inner work on myself. I'm afraid that I can't meet someone at my level of consciousness. Is this a realistic fear or just my projection? Thank you. Yeah, so that brings up a really interesting thing. One of the laws of relationships is that anytime we get together with someone that turns into a real relationship, I don't mean just starting to date, but the other person said, thank you, you're very welcome. I keep looking over here. This is where I'm seeing your comment. You're very welcome. If you get together with somebody and form a full-blown relationship, we all will always get together with someone at the same overall level of emotional development and health as ourselves. And that's because if you think about it, a lot of people don't think about it, but when you do think about it, it becomes pretty obvious. But why would that be the case? Well, if one person was here and the other person was here, that would feel very uncomfortable and feel very dissatisfying, and you would go apart. So we always get together with somebody who's at the same overall level of development and health as ourselves. So you don't actually have anything to worry about there. But this can be a fear that we have that can interfere with the process, right? So part 2, or concept 2, block number 2, is having fears and negative beliefs and interfere with being with our right partner. So if we have this, if we're sort of convinced or afraid that we'll never meet somebody at our level, that will cause us to feel defeated in advance. It'll cause us to hold back, to give up, things like that. So it'll interfere. The other thing is, for those people who are familiar with the concepts of the law of attraction, and again, I don't want to spend a lot of time in this call, especially since I don't have a lot of time left in the call. That kind of fearful negative belief can really impact the law of attraction, because very briefly, law of attraction is about putting your energy out to the universe of what you're wanting, which will tend to attract back to you the thing you're wanting, like something that matches your vibration, as they call it. But your vibration is both your conscious awareness of what it is you're wanting. Like, I'm wanting somebody who's, fulfills this big long list of traits, right? My partner vision list. I'm wanting a person like that, sending to the universe, sending the universe. But as you're sending the universe, you're also sending out your subconscious fears and negative beliefs and your feelings. And so in order for the law of attraction to work well, everything you're sending out needs to be positive and in alignment. So when you're doing some kind of law of attraction thing for yourself, you want to notice as you're sending out what you're wanting, how you're feeling as you're doing it. If you're feeling positive feelings like excited or confident or optimistic or having faith it'll work out, or any of those positive things, it's likely to work well. If you're having fearful thoughts or feeling sad or discouraged or angry with God or or the universe, or any kind of those kind of emotions, um, that's what you're going to attract back, right? So having this fear that I can't meet someone at my level can block that third concept and make it harder for that reason to meet somebody at your level. But the truth is that there are people at your level, right? There's people at every level in society, in the world. If you're at that level, that's proof that people can be at that level, and it's super unlikely that you're the only person on the planet at that level, right? So the very fact that you're at that level means there's very 99.99% likelihood that there are lots of other people at a similar level to you. So they're there, but you do want to release the fear that you won't be able to find somebody like that. Once you've cleared stuff and you're in a really good positive place, the law of attraction will help you guys come together. Now, I have a video, relatively recent one. I'm trying to remember well, it's about shoot, I forgot the title, but it's about how I use the law of attraction to find find all my partners and my wife ultimately. And then I just talk about the whole exact process. So if you're working with the law of attraction, check out that video, which sadly I don't remember the name of, but it's got law of attraction. So you type Stefan Gonick, law of attraction. I have 2 videos on that topic, and one of them is called The Right Way to Use the Law of Attraction to Attract Your Soulmate, which is a good video, but it's not the one I'm talking about. It's the other one. I just don't remember the title. All right. Let's see. Okay. Here's a follow-up. This person wrote, I'm not able to work with an EFT practitioner due to financial reasons, but I'd like to process the painful traits of my parents who I unconsciously seek out in partners. Can I do this processing? And if so, do you have a guide for this? I actually do. If you go to my website at singletosoulmate.me, not .com, .me, you can see it right there, right in the corner of the screen, singletosoulmate.me. I have a program called the Single to Soulmate Breakthrough Program. It's not free, but it's way cheaper than working one-on-one. And in fact, if you sign up for my free mini course first, the 3 Secrets to Attracting Amazing Love, which goes into more depth about these 3 key blocks I've been talking about in this call, it's just 8 days of lessons. There's 8 lessons, 1 a day. But it's a meaty mini course. It's not one of these fluffy ones. But by day 3, you'll see a link that will give you a discount to the price. So the price on the website, if you just go straight to the page, says $3.99. But if you sign up for my free mini course, and by day 3 and on I think 6 and 8, there'll be a link that will offer you the program as a discounted price of $247 or 3 payments of $99, 3 monthly payments. And this is a guided program with over 30 EFT sessions to help people work through their negative attraction patterns and also to clear their fears and negative beliefs. And it also helps with the law of attraction. So I find that part the easiest. That's why the video I talked about is really all you need for that part. But the first 2 involve healing. And so the program will guide you through it. So it's the best option you have if you can't afford one-on-one sessions. and which was actually the reason why I did it. These were recordings of live group sessions where I worked with people one-on-one, and everybody tapped along with that person. So it covers almost all the common negative attraction patterns that people have and things like that. And common, and our fears and negative beliefs are also very in common. So it'll help you work through that at a hopefully much more affordable price. All right. This person went, great, thanks, really appreciate this. Yes, you're very welcome. Okay. Huh. Well, let me just finish this question I was on, which actually was the last one. Yay. So this is going to work out very well. All right. So this person wrote, I don't even know what kind of partner I want versus what would be good or fitting for me. In fact, I hardly ever fall in love anymore. I avoid wrong partners and look out for red flags, but I also don't know what the green flags should be for me. Is that a problem in attracting the right partner? So yes, that is a problem. So I have a video that's the very favorite video I've ever made, and it's called The 3 Phases of Dating, Making Sense of the Madness, where I talk about the phases you'll go through in dating for people who are on the healing path. And phase 1 is where we all start, right? We all have our powerful negative attraction patterns. We have our fears and negative beliefs. We don't know how to use the law of attraction in a good way, and that's where we are. We start at phase 1. Once you you break out of your negative attraction patterns, you enter phase 2. And in phase 2 is a very dramatic phase because you still have all those fears and negative beliefs that are going to be preventing you from being with your ideal partner. But it'll shift as you start to progress through that stuff. But the first thing that happens at the very beginning of phase 2 is, I'm no longer attracted to the wrong people. Yay! But I'm way too scared and have too many limiting beliefs to be with the right person. So I find myself not attracted to anybody, which at first feels really bad. It's like, I'm going backwards. I used to have these powerful, exciting attractions. They're really unhealthy, but at least I had them, and I'd get all excited and all turned on and all that. And now I'm not attracted to anybody. This almost feels worse in a way. It's just an early part of phase 2. And as you clear your fears and negative beliefs, you'll progress through phase 2. And most of the video is actually about all the different things that happen in phase 2. Phase 3 is once you've sufficiently cleared out your fears and negative beliefs, you'll be in phase 3, healthy dating, where you won't be attracted to the wrong people. You're not being held back by your fears and negative beliefs. You're making good use of law of attraction. And you'll meet these really great people. And then the only question that you're dealing with in phase 3 is not, is this person healthy for me or not? But is this great person, the great person, right? That's the only question you're asking in phase 3 dating. Is this my life partner? Is this the one? It's going to be good. It's going to be, in fact, that's the most challenging part of phase 3 is you're going to be in a relationship that's very good. And then you have to kind of check in. It's very good, but is it good enough? Right? Should I hold out for great instead of very good? And that's the thing that's the thing sometimes people struggle with. But once you're in phase 3, the least you'll have is very good. Right? But another part of the question is, I don't even know who I want. What are the green flags? So it's really one of the things that's really important to do to help guide you, and certainly for the law of attraction stuff, is to get clear about what you want in a partner, to write down a list of things you're looking for. Now, I have a video about that. If you put in Stefan Gonick, I got 135 videos, so it's hard for me to remember the titles of all of them. But it has something to do with soulmate partner vision or something like that. So if you look for that, I explain how to get in touch with the things you're looking for in a partner and to write them down and how to write them down. For instance, you have to write them down in the positive, not double negative, things like that. So anyway, check out that video and that'll help guide you in the process. Alrighty, so looking to see any final comments. Nope. All right, well, I'm very it was fun and interesting, and I loved answering all your questions. I hope my answers were helpful. I already mentioned my free mini course, 3 Secrets to Attracting Amazing Love, which, as I said, does go into depth about the 3 key blocks to finding love and how to work through them, right? Using EFT. If anybody wants to talk to me about working with me one-on-one, just go to singletosoulmate.me. Also for the mini course, link in the description for this video, and go to the contact us page and just send me a message. And I'd be very happy to set up a free 20-minute discovery session with you to talk about the possibility of working together. So anyway, I just really want to encourage everybody, if you clear your blocks, now hopefully your blocks are feeling a lot more concrete and identifiable now. Once you clear them, there'll be nothing in your way of being with your soulmate. And I see so many people successfully do it once they clear their blocks. So you can do it too. Keep tapping. Bye, everybody.